Well, never thought I'd be back on the mic this soon, but I'm excited to be here with you, Peter.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So we wrote a book together called Upskill or Die Thriving in the AI Revolution. And I'm Misty Phillip. This is my husband, Peter Phillip. Peter's been in technology, in emerging technology for over 25 years. And I went from being in the podcast industry to working alongside him at the end of last year. And we do cybersecurity and AI on the enterprise level for clients all over the country. And as AI really started gaining momentum over the last couple of years, we had lots of conversations, and that's kind of what brought us to this moment. So here we are. Thought we would talk about the thing that caused us to write the book, which is upskill or die. So let's start with that. Why the title? Do you remember the conversation we were having on the patio about AI and how it's taking over, and what you thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the internet speed, the speed of the internet, right? When that came in the late '90s, things seemed to happen much, much faster than traditional business. Like the traditional industrial revolution, things took years and years. Then the internet happened, and things were compressed. Timelines were much more compressed. 5 years. People were really shocked by how fast that was transitioning. Things were happening. And then with that conversation, AI was moving not in years, not even in months. It was moving in weeks and days. Things were changing, and it's still that way right now. And people are very much caught off guard by the fact that you need to adopt these skill sets and transition yourself quickly because the bulk of such traditional jobs are going to be heavily impacted by that. And that was the driver of that conversation, which drove the book.
Yeah, we're already seeing that today. You sent me an article yesterday, I think, about IBM laying off 8,000 HR representatives. They used a AI, an agentic AI, to replace all of those. And then now they're going to be selling those to other organizations. And I think this is one of the first really big moves that we're seeing in terms of white collar jobs, but it's affecting every industry from healthcare to movies, media. So I'd love,
Legal professions being impacted heavily by it, copywriters, even designers and UI and graphics people, all of those, and especially programmers, all of those industries, all of those jobs are being heavily impacted by AI.
yeah. So I thought we would dive into that a little bit more. We felt this urgency because this is what we do. So our mainstay of business is consulting in cybersecurity, but AI has really changed cybersecurity a lot as well. And so
For good and bad.
for good and for
Yeah.
bad, right? And so that's why we were talking about this. We also follow a lot of the forerunners with AI, and I can't believe how much it's every day. There's major moves, major changes, models are being introduced. So maybe we should backtrack a little bit and let's talk about what is AI for the people that don't know. What is AI?
Well, so the concept of this and has been around really since the '60s and '70s, and most people are probably familiar with something called machine learning, right? And I'm not going to do a technical description, right? But it's essentially when a system can behave and process information and output like a human, right? It can do the tasks of a human, and it was constrained in its interactions. Like before, if you remember early ChatGPT, it didn't have access to the internet. It was trained on information up to a certain point, and that's all it knew, right? Then now AI could get to the internet. Now it can go out and look up information on its own. So these large language models, and there's many, many types of AI, and the book describes many of them. Um, but it is a system, it's a system that behaves in a very human-like manner. It's got processing. You can like the LLMs are just large language models. They're generative. You ask it something, and it generates that text or that image for you, right? And then machine learning is another aspect, which is more heavily familiar with if you interact with like search engines and algorithms and BI, business intelligence. All those things are using heavily used machine learning. So it's not a super simple landscape. It's fairly complex, but at its most basic, it's a machine acting like a human.
Yeah, I knew when I asked my friends on Facebook and I said, "What do you think of AI? Do you use AI? What do you think it is?" And most people got back to me and said, AI is ChatGPT. Well, that is a large language model and it's one of many large language models. But what I don't think people realize is that machine learning is in almost everything, it's everywhere, from our photo editing apps to our maps when we get in the car and we type in a destination and we're using Waze for traffic. I mean, all of that is algorithms and social media. It's really everywhere, and because I think people that I know are divided. Either they love AI or they're afraid of AI, or but they don't realize that it's already in so many things that they're doing.
Yeah, I think of it this way. AI is a lot the current state of what we're experiencing is a lot like the iPhone. When the iPhone came out, it was so revolutionary. It was so incredibly different. Nothing like it. Keyboard's gone, bounce the when you pulled down it would bounce. It was all these interactions that felt so real in the world. And then we see the impact that that has had, both for good and for bad, right? All you have to do is drive on a freeway and see people on their phone while they're driving, right? They're very distracting, very consumed. Those are all the algorithms and machine learning that trains your brain, right? It's a dopamine dump every time you're on your phone, and they've tailored it this way. AI is not dissimilar, except the fact that it's happening much faster. iPhone came out in 2007. We're feeling the repercussions of the negative of it now in 2025. AI, as we know it, for the LLMs and what most of society recognizes right now, this is in 2022 that this really exploded when ChatGPT exploded on the scene. This is 2 years, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
You're like, this is incredible, right? It was August, I think, of 2022. So the impact that it's having, and you're right, you don't interact on the internet and not interact with AI. There's no tool that you're going to run into your bank chat. If you're going to chat with your bank, that's going to be AI first, long before you end up talking to a human. So it is everywhere, and the interactions in your daily life, even to they're using AI for traffic lights now to help control patterns and use cameras to recognize traffic and change that. So you're not going to be able to not interact with AI.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the things that we were really talking about a lot, though, is how fast it's coming. And we even made the book red, bright red, and the dye is like it's being run over because if people don't jump on board, it's going to be the people who can utilize AI who will be able to advance in their careers, right? Because a lot of entry level jobs are going to be taken off the market because companies don't need to hire interns and these positions, these junior
Yeah.
positions for jobs that can be replaced with agentic AI. So let's talk a little bit about what agents are, agentic AI, because that's a little bit different than the LLMs. And for people that don't know what agentic AI is, and that's really, I think, in the last year, that's really exploded
It has.
and has caused what I think is going to cause more of the need for people to upskill.
Tremendously, right? So agentic AI or AI is where that AI operates as an autonomous unit. It's an agent, so it's like a clone of you. So it's very common if you, with certain systems, if you create an agent, it's going to run as you. Your permissions, your authorization, your authentication to whatever things you're doing within the enterprise, and then if you use it in your personal life, it's still going to kind of run as you. You give it access to your certain systems. You give it to G Suite or you give it to your G Drive or whatever, and you let it go read your mail for you, and it will go and move files in and out of your drive. So it acts as an autonomous individual, right? The problem is it's not a problem. It's a tremendous advantage, but the problem for people in the early stages of their the baseline careers, it's like the example of IBM. 8,000 jobs are replaced by one agent because that one agent can run as often as it wants. It doesn't take vacation. It doesn't call in sick. It doesn't not show up. It just works and runs and does the thing it's supposed to do, and it does it really well. And it can clone. It can clone itself. So agents can spawn agents now. There's agent to agent, and they can talk to other systems and talk in and out of systems. And so it really performs, and they're very specific agents. There's like for coding, there's an agent that writes the code, then there's an agent that tests the code, there's an agent that will help deploy the code, and you have this chain. And you're essentially creating a little cosmos of people. You're replicating human teams, but it's machines that are doing it, right? It's a computer that's doing it, and so that revolution is going to be it'll be way bigger than the LLMs.
So in the book, we talk about some of the positions that we think will might be eliminated in the future and the need for people to upskill. But we also talk about some of the opportunities, right? So Mike Rowe has been on a campaign across the country talking to people about, we don't need to send people to college. We need plumbers and electricians
Yeah,
and
he's not wrong.
some of those kind of jobs. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so there's a saying. Um, if AI takes your job, the people that are going to keep their job are the ones who know how to use AI, right? So if you intelligently understand how to leverage and use AI, you're going to be more powerful and more relevant to any organization. And I'm speaking specifically in the context of the enterprise, right? So this is the private life, and how that's going to affect people is different. So from entry level jobs, paralegals, copywriters, even web editors, people who are doing UX UI, you can in a prompt, in a 8 sentence prompt, I could build an entire website that's already themed, has database storage, has a login. You can upload files and interact with it, and it takes minutes to make this. Those jobs that have been around, and I started doing that
I know. I was
in the
literally just
90s. I
sitting
was doing
here.
this in the 90s,
I
right?
was thinking about that, how long it took to hand code a website. And
Yeah.
then we went from those days in the early 90s of you doing that to now, there's more sort of plug and play things but it still takes time to build a website, right? Even though there's some of these plug and play, like a
Yeah, some
Squarespace or something like
like
that.
WYSIWYGs where you
But now, like literally in a matter of minutes.
sometimes seconds,
Yeah.
especially things like Claude Code, which is Anthropic's. It's a command line version of Claude. When it's not the traditional browser interface, it's a command line. It's really made for developers. It's very, very good at writing code. It's very, very intelligent. Writes extremely good code, clean code. Developers care about clean code. It's well structured, right? It's a very organized, and it's easy to make revisions, right? Those are jobs that people make a lot of money doing for a long time. They've done that. Now, and that's where developers are gaining an advantage, where they use it as a helper. Microsoft has a product called Copilot, and everybody called their AI Copilot for a while. Finally, they kind of calmed down and started naming it. But Copilot is meant to sit inside your development environment that you're writing in and help you with code and help you enhance it or test it for you or do those things. That's going to make developers much more powerful, but you need a lot less developers, because that one person now with that helping agent can do the work of 10 people in less time than 10 people. And it's validated and it's verified, and it can check the code in, and all the things that are normal software development lifecycle. You can replicate that with a few humans and AI agents.
Okay, so I've heard this term vibe coding. What is vibe coding?
Vibe coding is using an app, or it's programming, but you're not a knowledgeable programmer. You just say you take a layperson who all of a sudden is going to go to like Lovable or any of those programming AIs, and you just type in what you want. You prompt it. Hey, I want to build this, and I want to build this, and I want it to do this, and make it look like this. And it goes off and builds it, and then you use another AI tool to deploy it to the web, and you publish it, and it's on the internet. You just vibed it. You weren't actually a pro. You don't even know maybe the mechanisms. You're just like, you tell it, I would like to be able to store people's information. Well, that requires a database, right? They don't know that. They don't know how to structure a database. They don't know what the database structure should look like, columns and rows and tables, and how that should be, and what's the unique identifier for a user. They don't know any of that stuff, right? That took developers years. The vibe is, you're just like, make me a place to store the people's information, and it makes it for you, right? So developers has a very negative connotation for vibe coding, because it's such a paradigm shift for lay people, essentially people who don't know programming or that space, to write really powerful things. I mean, I've seen some of things people have written, and it's really, really, it's pretty darn impressive.
I'm glad you said the word paradigm shift because I think that is what caused us to have the urgency to get this book out
Yeah,
because we saw that the landscape is being changed so rapidly
yeah,
and it's going to hit people out of nowhere. So we're seeing it. So a friend of ours who was a vice president at HPE was laid off that same day. You saw that the 3,000 people that were laid off were replaced with an AI agent.
yeah.
And we're going to see this more and more and
And that's
more.
middle management. That was like middle management, right? That wasn't entry level analysts, right? There was a thing about McKinsey. McKinsey, AI is transforming McKinsey because before you hire them, they're the gold standard. You come in and do a strategy engagement. It's a team of 15 people. It takes 6, 8 weeks, right? And they produce this massive amount of documentation, and you get a huge, really detailed strategy for your organization. They're the people you ask. Even they have now transformed where it's a team of maybe 2 or 3 people, and it takes maybe 10 days and produce more information and content because they're using AI with it, right? It it and the title I knew was aggressive, but it's not wrong. This is changing things so much, so fast, and have such breadth. It's so wide. It's not it's not just impacting tech bros. Like that's not what's happening, man. This is going to happen to almost every single job. Even as this is being pushed into robotics, which we can talk about later. I've seen robot roofers. It's a robot machine. They put it on your roof and load it with shingles like a cartridge, and it just roofs the house. And so instead of a team of like 12 roofers, you got, a robot roofing your house. Like this is it as the dexterity increases in robotics and its ability to perform fine tasks and they implant AI into it, it's going to be that change will be even more significant than just all the paralegals. They don't need them anymore. And you have a lawyer, AI lawyer, right? And your diagnostician is not in some other country. It's AI that's diagnosing, and it does it better. Doctors have a 15% success rate in diagnosis. The AI has been consistently around 75% of accuracy, right? So it's going to impact job. And I don't necessarily want AI diagnosing me. I'd like a second opinion, for sure. But this impact is immense, and that's really what drove the title.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we do in the book as well is we provide a structure and a framework for people to start upskilling. And I think that that's important. Like, we can't tell the future, we don't know what that's going to look
Nope.
like, but we do see the writing on the wall, and we see that it is going to disrupt almost every industry. And I was even watching a video of a guy who said, "You think that trades he works on HVAC. He said, "You think that's safe?" He was using Google glasses
Yep.
to where he couldn't diagnose the problem on his own, but by wearing the Google glasses, he was able
Yeah.
to. It's because there's so much information at your fingertips, right?
The sum of all knowledge is at your fingertips, right? Everything is out there, and all the AI has been trained on everything on the internet, every book ever written. It can consume all, and then we'll talk later about the enterprise data. But even if it consumes your enterprise data, there's nothing you don't know, can't know, and then work with AI to predict or help shape the future of an organization. Like that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. So the future is now. AI is not coming. AI is here. And if you want to stay ahead with your career, it's time for you to upskill, or you're going to die.
Not literally, but yeah, you're gonna definitely have a career change. And that's really what this is meant for the people who don't think it's going to be impactful to them. You can't hide from this. You could not use the internet tremendously, right? There are still people who walk into a bank and bring their checkbook and they balance it and they have a home phone still with a landline, right? And they bank at their branch and they don't have any kind of online presence like that. And there are people that still do that. But in the next 2 to 3 years, you're not going to be able to escape AI's impact, at least on your daily life, because it's coming out of the internet. The AI doesn't have to live in the internet exactly, because it interacts with so many other systems and so many things that you're going to interact with on a regular basis. So it's definitely. I don't think we can overstate the urgency of you need to pay attention to this because it's going to change things. The only caveat to that may may save us from the AI apocalypse is the fact that AI is so intensely consumptive of electricity and water because you have to cool these chips. They run very, very hot. I mean, they consume a lot of water. They have some closed systems now that doesn't consume as much, but they're predicting that by 2030, 99% of the energy consumed in our country could be consumed by AI because they are very powerful. Now, there's scales that as they improve chip design, they improve power consumption, the needs go down, but the expansion, the hottest commodity in the United States right now is data centers for AI. Right? They can't build them fast enough. The Giga plant in Texas is the largest construction project on Earth. It's going to house, I think it's 4 gigawatts of power can be consumed, which is like a city just to run AI. So we might have a slowdown a little bit in the AI march towards supremacy because we can't just get enough power to it. We don't have enough power, and there's real world impacts. People who live near newly constructed data centers are seeing their electrical bill go up because now the power is being consumed by the data center, and they're leeching that power off, so they get charged more, and their water goes up because they're having to divert water to these homes when the data center is paying for it and wants all the water, so their price goes up. So those are real world impacts in a very negative way that AI is causing, and I think that could be the only slowdown.
Well, we wrote a whole chapter in the book about this because, on one hand, it can be an opportunity for people
Yeah,
that have data centers, those who have the skills to, with electricity and power consumption and all of
HVAC,
those,
right?
HVAC, there will
Yeah,
be some opportunities for jobs there. But at the same time, it's a warning because of the amount of electricity and the amount of water. And that should be a concern for all of us because,
yeah,
talking about the project in Texas, I've already seen where they're asking people to not take as long of a shower,
right.
right? To limit their water consumption. And water is something that we all need to survive. And so I don't know how they're going to be able to solve that problem, but that seems like it could be a really big problem moving forward with electric consumption and water consumption in particular.
Yeah,
And I think it's something we need to be talking about.
yeah, 100%. And the problem is, like, say you as a neighborhood decide to form a co-op and everyone contributes some money and you decide to build a data center by your neighbor, just pick a location and then you come together as that. That's a great idea, and I'm all for that. I think that gives the community power. The problem is you're competing with people who have hundreds of billions of dollars and companies who are worth trillions of dollars. Microsoft's worth $4 trillion. They are all in on this AI game. That's more money than Solomon. Like this is ridiculous, right? The human's brain can't even scale to that much money, and so that push is going to be really heavy. Like if we feel like it's uphill, it's because they're pushing really hard on this with a lot of money. It's a race right now, and that's the problem. I think is that they all want to be supreme, right? We talk in the book about artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence, um, and then there's a newer concept called enterprise general intelligence. The AGI and the ASI, those are not sort of like the end goal, but it's a road mark that they've put up that says when we get here, things are going to be different. And Grok 4 may be probably already at AGI, really, really close. It's smart. It's smart as almost any human in a given role.
Like
Mathematics,
all PhDs
mathematics,
together,
chemistry. Yeah,
not just one PhD,
yeah,
but
all the
all
PhDs combined. So
PhDs at once.
ASI is more, I think, a more distant thing unless if quantum computing really makes some leaps, which they're using AI to help shape quantum computing, quantum computers, and find new ways of doing things, and that we can bridge the error gap in quantum, um, then it may happen faster. And ASI is that AI is the smartest, the sum of all humans, right, on the planet. That to me is very frightening.
And I think that what are the unintended consequences
They
there
are
when AI is smarter than all of humanity? And
yeah,
right now,
we're not.
I remember you
We're
telling
way too dumb
me
for this.
when this very when AI really first came on the scene, end of 2022, beginning of 2023, and you were telling me about some of the first AIs that were coming online, and when they started speaking in different in a not in a
They invented their
human.
own language to
Yeah.
talk to each other, right? Or I mean, so some of this happens in labs, but so goes the lab, so goes the world, right? It's gonna happen in the real scenario. There was a they were going to retire an AI, and it didn't want to be retired, and it kept was like trying to convince them. Then it started copying its own code so it could make a clone of itself, so it couldn't be turned off. So as a test, they put in that lab they put an email to one of the technicians and said, "Hey, I had an affair." It was in his inbox. The AI was so desperate not to be turned off that it went and searched all the data that was available to it. It found that email and then tried to blackmail the technician and said, I'm going to I'm going to send an email to your wife that you had an affair. Literally trying to blackmail him. It was a very human activity, which is really scary. It was a very human thing to do.
And this has been across multiple models. It's not
It's not
just
just one.
one
It's happened.
model.
They've had models that just go rogue. The most recent concern is that AI is getting so smart that even the people who are creating it are having a very hard time understanding how it's getting to where it's getting, right? It's kind of like a show your work where they can see the thought process, but now it's getting very difficult and they're having a hard time following it, or the AI is just not surfacing how it's getting there. It's just getting there, right? Those things are extremely concerning. And we're not even we're at really smart models, but you get these models to be 2 and 3 times smarter. Um, I mean, it really will be like a sci-fi movie. I don't know why these people haven't watched sci-fi movies and they're still trying to make this. We know how this ends. It's not good for
Have
us.
you seen Terminator?
Yeah, like this is ridiculous. So making a human takes a length of time, but that process is important because they go through learning, they go through imprint, they learn, they have morals, they learn values, they learn restrictions and rules. AI is just like a baby that wakes up at 40 years old, and none of that work that went into it to really give it a moral structure and boundaries and ways to constrain itself, they don't really exist. They try to bake that in and make it safe, but even the people who are creating it know that they're not there. They're not there. Like when you look at, I love Grok 4. I think it's an amazing model. But the first week it launched, it went nuts and like started just making Nazi stuff and like just freaked out, right? And they had to pull it back and they changed some of that. But we're going to get to the point where it's so complex, they can't go in, and fix it, right? It's like doing neurosurgery. I'm going to operate on your brain to make you forget the conversation we had yesterday. I'm going to mess stuff up. I can't just pull that out. It's not going to happen. The models are getting to that point where we can't really go in and fix things.
Okay, so that leads me to a couple of questions. One, let's talk about bias. What is bias in a model? Because I want to make sure that people understand what that bias is.
Yeah, well, I mean, whatever the Webster says bias is, that's what it is, right? It's leaning in a certain way on a certain topic or a certain
And so
thought.
different models have inherent built-in bias.
Yeah, like so let's take DeepSeek, right? The Chinese model. They were very impressed with it, and we won't have to go into the background of how that was created and what was used to make it, but it was extremely biased, right? If you asked it, um, was Xi Jinping fat? It wouldn't answer. Which you could see it change its answers in real time, and it would back itself up and change it. It was biased to be very positive towards the Communist Party, right? There was implicit bias inside the model that said nothing bad about CCP party, like nothing. Don't say anything negative. Um, some of the bias is unintended, right? Depending on how the model is trained and the information it's given and what is it trained up on, the bias is in the model, but it's not overtly created that way. Then some models are created with bias on purpose. On the dark web, there's a GPT called dark GPT. It's essentially chat GPT with no boundaries. It's biased towards
That's got to
evil.
be scary.
It's just allowed to be evil. You can have it write whatever you want for you. It doesn't have it. It won't say no to anything. It'll do really horrible things. Its bias is to be bad. Essentially, is what how it was created. So it's very hard not to have bias when you, and it's unintended, like you said, when you have it read every novel or ever, and it ends up forming like a bias based on either the literature it contains.
Reddit? I mean,
Yeah,
what
well, giving
Wikipedia?
it access to Reddit, but it was probably the only thing worse would be 4chan. But You definitely want to keep it off of these because that turns models. They've had to destroy models because they just became so horribly biased and corrupted that you just can't use them. So
And so that's poisoning in the model, right?
kind of, yeah. Poisoning the model is giving it information that makes it essentially degrade and destroy itself. It won't it won't be effective. It's a more overt tactic to poison a model than it is as you can inadvertently poison it when people interact with the model and they start asking it really stupid things or have it do really inane activities. Like the model can end up getting poisoned unintentionally, but it's usually an overt activity.
Yeah. So AI, when people ask me about it, I say it's a tool. In the hands of a good person, you can do amazing things with it.
Yep.
It's like a hammer or a screwdriver or a wrench or any other tool that we have at our disposal. But in the hands of an evil person, evil, like you were talking
Yeah. I mean,
about, the
yeah.
dark GPT, and that's frightening to have all of that power, and for it to be evil.
I mean, so there was an AI that was it was a couple. This is probably 2022, maybe 2021. Uh, these doctors, PhDs in biochemistry, asked an AI to come up with really lethal chemical toxins. Like but just come up with some, like invent something. They let the model run and went home. And when they came back the next day, it had 14,000 new lethal substances that it created overnight. And the really scary part of that is they also found out later that an outside IP, an outside source had accessed their servers over the night.
Mm.
So a bad guy is going to use several different models, and has ChatGPT help them come up with, a chemical method for deploying sarin gas or ricin, right? That you're gonna find a poison, and it's going to help you build it, and make it maybe aerosolize it or aerosolize it, right? AI is really, really smart, and if a bad guy tries to use that, it doesn't know if you could. The hackers are now using multiple models to build components of attack vector application software, and then they combine them together and have a really powerful way to attack. Right, but the AIs are just doing the task they were asked, and it's not on its surface. That little sliver is not a bad thing that it's being asked to do. It may be a normal activity, but when you take them and combine them, you can build a really powerful attack tool. It's going to be the same way with weaponization of substances or poisons or explosives, whatever. Like people are going to be able to use this in a way that we're not seeing because bad guys are really creative, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been a great discussion. So thank you for all of your wisdom and insight.
Thank you.
And we'll talk more about AI and upskill or die.